Okay, switching gears here, the Consumer Bank Association is the only member-driven trade association focused exclusively on retail banking. CBA helps its members achieve the American dream, whether that means buying a home, financing an education, or launching a small business. CBA's corporate members include Chase, Citi, and Bank of America, with 85% holding over $10 billion in terms of assets. Joining us now, after ringing the closing bell here at the New York Stock Exchange, Richard Hunt, the president and CEO of the Consumer Bankers Association, and CBA's board chairman, Nitin Mhatre with Webster Bank. It's great to have both of you with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So one issue pretty important to all of us, and especially those who like and watch Cheddar, student loans. So what are you guys doing to help reduce the student loan debt and burden for so many Americans?
Well, it's a very interesting time to be in Washington, D.C. because the federal government is the largest predatory lender. It's the fifth largest bank if you count all the student loans they provide. Now, we want to make sure those who want to go to college have the means to go. For instance, I went to school on Pell Grants. I went to school on subsidized federal loans as well and had my debt to pay off, and we did that. But what is happening now is atrocious to the consumer. Right now, we have some 30% of all people who get a federal student loan who are defaulting, and they can't pay it back. And yet the government just continues to give money to them. Now, I worked on Capitol Hill for some 12 years, and when I was there, one thing both parties agreed to: the federal government should not be subsidizing rich people to go to college. Those people who really need the means to go to college should go to the federal government and get a Pell Grant or a subsidized federal loan. If you come from a wealthy family, that's where you should go to the private sector. So right now, we're just throwing money at people to go to college who have no way of paying it back. And that's the worst thing you can do for a person coming out of college.
Absolutely.
So what we're trying to do is put reasonable caps
Right.
on Parent Plus loans and graduate loans and expanding Pell Grants. The government has a vital role to play in helping people go to college via the Pell Grant route.
So for a lot of people out there, students who are now graduates who are trying to figure out, okay, the numbers aren't matching up. I've got this new job, but because living expenses are also going higher in a lot of the major cities where jobs are seeing their hotbeds gravitate towards, this means that they're unable to set aside as much to pay off these student loans, and their focus shifts towards debt forgiveness as well. You've heard some aggressive plans from presidential candidates. Do you believe there's one that could actually come to fruition should they be elected? Or is there something deeper that we should be focusing on should their plan not be enacted because they do not win the presidential election?
I think there's a lot of activity that's happening in the sector already. It's a $1.6 trillion problem that we're trying to solve here. I think significant members of the private sector industry is helping students consolidate or refinance their debt and improve their cash flows. But I think the more important thing that we feel is to get to the root cause of the problem. Like Richard was talking about, increase the Pell Grants for the folks that need it, improve the access through the private sector, improve the transparency, and create that know before you owe for every loan that is originated today. And for the existing consumers that have this debt, I think there is a significant number of new programs that are being built to reduce the debt burden and improve the cash flows for these consumers.
I want to get your reaction to Senator Warren last night in the debate. She said she would and will, if she is the president, direct her Secretary of Education to begin to, quote, compromise and modify student loans on a federal level up to $50,000 for about 95% of those with outstanding debt. What does that look like if she achieves that, and is that ultimately beneficial? How does that look in real life?
I think it creates a significant disruption for the industry, for sure. And I think it might also, at least in the short term, create a limited access for the new consumers that want to actually get into student loans. So I think it's a wait and watch for the industry to see how that pans out. But there is a significant cost to it at a federal level, and there is a significant limitation for the private sector to be wanting to be in this space till the chips fall down in the right place.
Is there a way to do this without inflation on the back end skyrocketing? If you've got all of the companies out there in our broader economic system that are now looking at a whole treasure trove of consumers that perhaps are willing to pay more for items because they're not paying for student loans in another capacity of their financial spending and planning, how do we ensure that inflation then doesn't skyrocket?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. The cost of college has gone up over 1,000% in the last 4 decades. Universities and colleges must have a skin in the game. They can't just be having gymnasiums and tanning salons to entice people to come to their college. So they got to have part responsibility too. Maybe that has to be tied to graduation rates and repayment rates. So our main focus at CBA is to focus on the front end of the college application, not necessarily the back end of it.
Okay, and you recently filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court in a lawsuit against the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau case. Explain the positioning here and why you felt it was important to support the arguments.
Yeah, so we've been in support of the CFPB for the last several years. It should exist to help protect consumers and help the marketplace. However, the way the structure is today, one single person gets to write all the rules and enforcement action for every single consumer in this country. So we're not arguing the existence of the CFPB, we're arguing the leadership structure. 99% of all other federal agencies are run by a 5-person bipartisan commission where they have full debate in the light of day at 2 p.m. to discuss various issues, not just have one person be the dictator of it all.
All right, Richard Hunt, the president and CEO of the Consumer Bankers Association and CBA's board chairman, Nitin Mhatre, with the Webster Bank as well. Great to have you both here today.
Thank you very much.
And we saw you ringing the closing bell. Excellent job. Everything
All-time
closed.
high, you noticed that.
Yeah, you did that.
You're
Thank
ringing.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
All right, guys, thanks so much.